You can now get a 30-day trial to experience The Athletic for free. Visit the link in the description below to try it now. At the beginning of August, Jack Grealish became the first British player to change clubs for £100 million, moving from Aston Villa to Manchester City. And this is the story of how that transfer record was broken. The twists and the turns, and what nobody knew at the time. At the heart of the Grealish saga was actually a release clause that was only made public after the fact. It had been inserted into his contract when he signed a new 5-year deal last September and meant that he could leave the club if a Champions League qualified club offered £100 million, provided that bid arrived before the 7th of August. It remained confidential though, meaning in theory that City didn't know about it, and even with a bid matching the value received, Villa could stall in the hope of getting more money from them or just to gain time to sign some players themselves. And that is what would happen. When the initial offer arrived, a week before the transfer was completed, at the end of July, Villa chief executive Christian Purslow indicated to the player that it would be accepted, but there was nothing more formal, which did not please the player or City. At one point, Villa held tentative conversations about whether Real Madrid could offer some sort of player swap instead. Manchester United were called too, and swap deals were also mentioned. Many Premier League clubs are concerned that Manchester City's success and financial clout are damaging the competition, and Villa were reluctant to sell. But the Monday following the agreement that the bid would be accepted, frictions emerged, and Purslow was reminded by the players' camp about the clause. Nobody wanted legal action. Grealish genuinely loves Villa and wanted to leave on good terms with the fans, especially as his family live in the Birmingham area. There was certainly no talk of refusing to train, and Villa insiders told The Athletic that Grealish's behaviour was impeccable throughout. But finally, with Leon Bailey signed and Danny Ings on the way, Grealish was released to head for Manchester on the Wednesday. Firstly though, he was asked to go out and watch an 11v11 training game while Villa finalised the Ings deal. And secondly, he decided to make a speech in the changing room after that match, during which he became emotional, and at the end of which his teammates gave him a round of applause. The saga ended the next day, with Grealish completing a medical at Manchester City. It means that Villa had their money, which will be paid in instalments over 3 years, and City had their target. Now, Pep Guardiola has made it clear that Grealish is the attacking midfield option he wants to alternate with İlkay Gündoğan, who has become a key part of the City team, particularly since David Silva left the club last summer. But City's interest stretches even further back, almost 18 months. Grealish has been aware of Guardiola's admiration since he played against City in the Carabao Cup final in March of 2020. Not only because Guardiola had praised his performances in previous games between the two sides and also answered questions in detail in public, but also because those in his inner circle had heard about City would consider firming up their interest if Villa were relegated from the Premier League that season. Manchester United had a similar plan and were still considering Grealish in the period after Villa had secured survival. Eventually they decided Ajax midfielder Donny van der Beek, with his experience of playing Champions League football, represented better value for money at just £35 million. Manchester City shifted their focus onto the defence and spent almost £100 million on centre-backs Ruben Dias and Nathan Ake. But this summer, Grealish shot up to the top of the wish list. They knew that if they were to hit the £100 million figure, Villa would consider selling their captain and that he would be interested in joining. One of Grealish's favourite players, Kevin De Bruyne, pulled him to one side after England played Belgium in the Nations League in 2020 to tell him that he was a brilliant performer in his own right and that he would fit in well at City. And during the European Championship this summer, he was also able to find out everything that he wanted to know about City from the relevant representatives in the squad. Raheem Sterling and Phil Foden are going to be two of his direct rivals for game time this season. But he gets on well with both and was able to learn more about his new club during his time with England. And in the long term, this may even seem like a prudent signing, or at least one instructed by foresight. There's a suspicion among Premier League clubs that Brexit will dictate that stricter homegrown quotas could be imposed on English football in the next year or so. And if that were to be the case, then players such as Grealish would cost even more. It won't make that £100 million look cheap, not by any stretch, but perhaps not as expensive as it could have been. For now though, it's time for City to enjoy Grealish. The player who gripped the nation all summer despite only playing a bit part role in England's run to the European Championship final. and a player tasked with finally helping the club land that coveted Champions League title. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic brings you the best sports journalism in the world in a personalised experience, connecting you with the stories and teams that you care about the most. There's coverage of 13 sports, plus direct access to world-class journalists through live Q&As, discussions and podcasts. Not to mention, it's all ad-free. And you can try it now for free for 30 days by clicking the link in the description.